In case you've been living under a rock, I like to live under rocks, but there's been some major news in our hobby, in our industry, and that is pertaining to Brian Barczyk. Brian has been a friend of mine for a long time. I initially knew Brian, way back in the heyday when ball pythons weren't even a thing, and I was working on making ball pythons a thing, and Brian took notice and he saw the potential in ball pythons. He came a little bit later in that thing because he was really breeding a lot of colubrids, but ultimately I sold Pastel Jungle to Brian, and initially I knew Brian as another breeder, and so we're in some ways we're competitors and all that, but I got to know Brian. It's like, this guy's got all these animals, he's got so much good stuff, he's making all these crazy animals. His colubrid display at any of the shows or reptile shows was just expansive, and it was definitely pretty darn amazing. So I became friends with Brian. We would talk a lot about ball pythons, always like, what's the latest thing out of Africa? I remember the heyday with the Viper ball, and he spent a lot of money on this snake. Ultimately, it wasn't even genetic. There's something about Brian that leaves you, he has a very strong effect on you. So there's kind of like, we see Brian, when we see him on his vlogs, and he's like, hey everybody, he's trying to be really positive, and he's being dynamic. We actually have some videos of him before he used to do that. And I give him credit because he's being positive. And Brian kind of adopted this persona. I want to be in people's lives every day. I want to be viewed every day. I want to express myself every day, show you the transparency of my life, show you my ups and downs and all that. And as he did that, he was affecting all these people. And what he learned to be was to be bigger than himself. And I mean that in the way things going on, he has his businesses, and we have, downfalls and tragedies. And he was always trying to be positive. And he's blown me away in that department, because I suffer from these hiccups and these just problems that really can bring me down and really affect my overall mental performance. People know in my building, sometimes stay away from Kevin. He's not in a good mood, and you're not going to want to deal with him. So Brian always can be positive. So I've known Brian through some really downturns, when really things were really bad, and he always was able to reconfigure things and do things. Do you know there was a time he didn't have the Reptarium? There was a time he didn't have snake bites. So I remember having conversations with him about snake bites, and I knew somebody who actually had that term. They had it for their webpage, snake bites. And he was asking me about that. And then there was a time we were talking about, he's like, I want to make this Reptarium. And he was asking me about displays and all this different stuff. And then fast forward, which doesn't seem like very long, 3, 4, 5 years, whatever the hell it is. He has this amazing Reptarium that all these people have gone to. And it's very well recognized. So this is a private zoo. This is something he did when he first opened up the Reptarium. He wasn't even thinking he was even going to make money. He's like, even if I break even, expose people to animals and all this, and it's a positive thing. It's something good that he's doing. And I admire Brian because he wants to have a positive effect on people. He wants to make people feel good. He wants to change their views. He wants to expand their minds. Awaken them, much like Steve Irwin did. Steve Irwin was our magical ambassador for wildlife and animals, certainly reptiles. He would open people's minds to these animals and get people talking about them and creating empathy and value for these animals. And that is imperative. You can't say something if you don't value it, if you don't appreciate it. And that's the major focus in conservation. And a lot of times it's actually missed, because you have people that dictate things to their viewers or the masses about conserve this, conserve that. But what they don't do is they don't create a bond, they don't create a relationship, they don't create the empathy, and you need that for true conservation. So people like Steve Irwin, people like Brian Barczyk. Well, what's going on with Brian? Brian has been diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. It was a very shocking thing to Brian, to his family, and to the whole hobby and the industry, because cancer, we certainly know that the downside of cancer, and pancreatic cancer that's a serious cancer. It's one of the more serious ones, I would tell you. I've been with some people that have had various forms of cancer, and I've dealt with, them in their fight, and so it affects me greatly. And it screwed me up. So Brian was having a bit of pain and uncomfortableness, and he thought it was like a kidney infection, kidney stones, actually, and luckily he went and went to a urologist, and they detected a little bit of blood in his urine, but a really small amount. And then he was going to go in to get further, work done up on that, and then he started having more specific pain. And my buddy Chris over at Garden State Tortoise was out visiting Brian in the Reptarium. They were filming, and he kept on, he was telling me, God, Brian wasn't feeling so well, but he was a trooper, as he always is. He got through the filming and all that, and ultimately Brian went to the hospital. It screwed me up when he told me, because it went from like, right now Brian is engaging in the biggest move of his life, which is building his super aquarium reptarium, which is across the street from the existing reptarium. He bought the property. He spent a huge amount of money on engineering. He's already started doing site work. He's already assembled his team. He's done everything. He's done everything for a long life, for a legacy, for his family, for everything. And now he gets this obstacle in his road. And it's so concerning to me, because the guy he's a force to be reckoned with. He is a huge personality in our hobby. If he's not the most known personality, the most positive personalities, he's certainly one of the very top. Brian Barczyk is committed to animals. He loves animals. He's incredibly knowledgeable beyond reptiles and amphibians. He loves, all sorts of animals. It's just, I've spent hundreds, if not thousands of hours talking to Brian. We're always talking about different animals and how much we love things. So he and I bond heavily on this. And my love for him is so genuine, because he loves these animals. And I'm one of these people, if you love animals, I'm kind of on the same team as you. Even if you hate me, whatever. It's you have a version of me. If you like animals and you do things that are positive for animals, you're still my friend, because animals are the only thing in my real world that propels me every single day. Animals. I love animals, and I love ecology and the environment and conservation. And Brian is the same kind of person, and he wants to build this incredible aquarium, reptarium, and now he's hit with some real heavy stuff. After he told me, I couldn't, for 3 or 4 days, I couldn't even function. I could not get my brain on work. I couldn't, I just was floundering around, and I'm really disgusted with myself when I do that, when I'm actually not working and I'm being useless, and I was being kind of like a baby. And if anybody has the strength to really fight this, it's Brian. Brian, and I mean it. Brian he has such resilience. He can somehow turn things over and find the good in many situations that have a lot of bad things, and I give him such credit to that. And I really think it's very important that our entire hobby, we rally behind Brian Barczyk. And I have a Facebook group called Stay Strong Brian Barczyk, and that group is specifically, it's a closed public group, but you have to join it to see it. But it's designed to tell Brian, as if you were talking to Brian, what he has done for you, how he has changed your view, changed your mindset, helped you through a tough time. A lot of people suffer from depression, such as I do, And Brian has helped people through really bad situations. People have also had their own cancer diagnoses and, you know, were maybe laid up and recovering, and they're binging all of Brian's, you know, daily vlogs and all that. But all these people have, you know, years and years and years of all these different perspectives of Brian and what he did for them. And I want you to go there, and I want you to gush what your appreciation is of Brian, because the only point of this Facebook group is to let Brian know that he is truly loved and he's backed by our hobby. And I think that's the most important thing for your immune response when you're dealing with any major challenge. You have to have the best outlook. You have to have the best immune response. You have to be as healthy as possible. And Brian is not beaten. He's fighting this. You can certainly look at. I'm not going to reveal too much because this is Brian's place. He's my friend, and I'm not doing this video to gain publicity from it. I'm just talking about it. We have AnimalCon. AnimalCon is Brian Barczyk's brainchild about bringing social media influencers that are around the world of reptiles, amphibians, and other animals, bring them into a place where an audience can come in there and actually get to know their next new favorite social media personality. And they'll get to listen to them engage in talks on panels, debate, maybe argue, because I like to argue. And you can see whatever charismatic personality that you want to follow, and you get to see it. So it's almost like a buffet of all these people that we are gathering and bringing to this place, and then you get to go visit them. And of course, also show your support. But that is Brian Barczyk's AnimalCon. And that is going to end up being, one of the things that's forever Brian. Brian's infinite amount of daily vlogs is, it's just like, what a presence, just like Steve Irwin. But we have Brian. Brian's here. Brian's fighting. And I think it'd be a really good place right here in the comments to gush, because Brian's going to come here and see this video. And let me tell you, he needs to feel that support and that appreciation, because literally it is appreciation. I appreciate Brian Barczyk for everything he has done. Certainly it benefits Brian, but he's also done incredible things for many different people. He's extended himself overly to the benefit and welfare of other people and helping them. And I think it's time for us to give back. And I wish you would go join Stay Strong Brian Barczyk on Facebook. I'd like you to comment here. Please talk about positive things. Right now, Brian is probably being inundated with all sorts of different support to the point where it's probably overwhelming. It's probably a full-time job just mitigating through all that, as with Noah and Lori, and his immediate family and his staff and all that. So we're kind of like, we're putting that out there, all the positiveness, but sometimes we might not get a response or whatever. Don't sweat it. At this weekend, we're going to have Tinley and Mike Wilbanks. We're doing Stay Strong Brian Barczyk. He's doing some wristbands and stuff like that. So we really want to collectively, we all want to get these wristbands. We all want to show support. Brian Barczyk is heavily on my mind, and I hope he's on your mind too. And make sure you do everything you can to support him. This is real. It's not clickbait. This is not anything. This is a serious thing. And I'd say Brian is strong, but he's a bit scared. And I think he needs to feel your appreciation and your love, and I certainly have a lot for him. So give me a thumbs up and subscribe too, and I appreciate you guys taking the time. And can we let's start talking about this. Say some comments, because Brian's going to come in here and he's going to be reading your comments.
I gotta turn my camera on, dude.
You didn't turn your camera on!